I received an SMS saying you passed in the Department of Mediterranean Studies at the University of the Aegean in Rhodes, Greece. At that point, I couldn't even remember that I had made that choice when I was making the list. I was like, perfection has its place, but it's better to be effective instead of perfect.
Zenonas, it's great having you with us today. Before we get into more details about you and what's your story, I want to tell you that although it's the first time I meet you live, this is not the first encounter with you. I have a funny story about this. So I think it was maybe 2016, August. It was when I came back from Brussels, where I used to work and live. And you know, when you change location, one of the first things you do is to find a new gym. So I subscribed to a new gym here in Limassol. It was summer, and I was doing this cycling. There was this machine, where it's like a stable bicycle, and they had this super new machine that you could watch TV. So, cycling is boring. So the cycling is boring indoors. It's not boring when you're outdoors. So I switched on the TV. It was the Cyprus Broadcasting Corporation, Rigena. And I see a young guy talking about the geopolitical situation in the region. And it was very unstable time for the region with the war in Syria, developments in Turkey. And I saw you talking with so much enthusiasm and so much knowledge, and I felt that in Cyprus, because it was a time when I returned also back after studying abroad, living abroad, and I felt that I made a good decision, looking at a young professional being so passionate and making his way into the public sphere. And I have to. I wanted to share this story with you. It was I related at that time, and it was a very nice booster for me for returning back to Cyprus.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you very much for having me.
It's been now 8 years. That's
since when?
Since the first time.
Since 2016.
Yes.
Wow.
Almost 7 years that this happened.
Was it your first public interviews back then, or it was actually some years, right?
No, I think my first appearance on TV was in 2013.
Okay.
It was a strange first time because I went on CYBC, the national television, RIG, and I went there with my small pad and a pen, and the broadcaster, the presenter, the journalist there was looking at me like, what is this? Why is he holding it? It was a very funny, like a small book. You would open and take notes. So I was scared that I might be asked something that I wouldn't remember later on to answer. In the end, I didn't need it, but it was funny seeing a guy, holding this small pad and trying to answer questions. And the guy was looking at me weirdly because it was my first time, and I never used the pad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was thinking now what kind of interview are we doing right now?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when you were a kid or in high school, would you imagine that you will be talking in public TV after, 10 years or something?
No. No. I had very low expectations of myself. At some point, I even wanted to drop out of school. I didn't want to go to high school. Okay. Because I didn't see the point in going to school. And I thought that I would be much more productive going out and finding a job to support myself and be independent. That was when I was about maybe 15 or 16 years old. Obviously, my parents wouldn't have it, and good for them. But later on, what I wanted to study. I liked music. I spent most of my teenage years locked in my room playing the guitar. I should have, when I was supposed to be studying, I was actually playing the guitar, not studying very much. That's why I was also a mediocre student of around 16 out of 20 overall. That was my let's say the average grades. So I very much wanted to become like a musician. Another idea that I had at the time was to become a psychologist. I like the idea of talking to people, of helping people. I had this in my everyday life as a teenager. People would come to me, they would discuss their problems with me. So I thought that might be a good thing to do. However, I could do neither because the classes I picked in high school, NEO Ligio, this united logic of picking whatever classes, whatever courses you like, didn't give much direction. So I ended up at the end of high school not having many options of studying in the university. I was very limited to certain social sciences, humanities, and a few other technical fields. So I couldn't go study music because I didn't have enough academic background on music, and I couldn't study psychology because I didn't have the required courses. So I just made a list of fields that I could choose. And one day while I was in the army, joking with, exercising with the rest of the troops, I received an SMS saying you passed in the Department of Mediterranean Studies at the University of the Aegean in Rhodes, Greece. At that point, I couldn't even remember that I had made that choice when I was making the list. I was like, what is this? Why did I pick this? Eventually, it turns out that it was the last one of my choices.
Okay.
So at that point, I finished the.
What was the feeling of receiving that text?
Well,
would you prefer that they will tell you didn't pass at all? Like, did you want to study?
No. I was excited in the sense that I had an option.
Okay.
And I was anxious to go back home and look up what that thing was.
It sounds nice, though. Studying at an island, the Mediterranean climate. It sounds combining holidays with
like
studies.
Learning how to make soula and the Greek salad. I don't know.
This is what I thought as well. That it was a nice idea. I went home, I looked it up, I saw subjects like archaeology, linguistics, politics, history. I'm like, okay, this doesn't look so bad. Of course, I still wanted to look into the option of going to a private university and do a music degree. Mm-hmm. At that point in time, we did have certain courses in music, but they were not recognized courses. So it wouldn't be a good idea for me to do them.
What was your imagination about these private studies of music? Was it to become yourself like a musician playing in
a performer?
Performer, or was it to teach kids? What was?
What I wanted to do was to go into sound engineering and arrangement. So I wanted to create my own songs, be able to arrange my own songs and produce my own songs.
So you wanted to become a DJ?
No. Well, not exactly. DJs do that to a certain extent, but no, I wanted to become more like a music producer, someone who people come to them, they give them some raw material about an idea of a song, then they come up with the arrangement, the instruments, the structure of the song, and so on, and they record it. I liked very much the process of recording music because I used to do it at home, and putting the music out there as a creative process, because I have this creative side of me that always makes me think of things to do.
Is music still part of your life?
Yes. As much as I can. Not as much as I would like or that it used to be, but it's part of it. But anyway, so my father at that point told me, I mean, there is no sense in doing that degree in music if you're not going to be able to find a job, if no one will recognize it. So my suggestion to you is go to Greece, do your degree, and then come back and do whatever you want. Just have the safety of some degree. And I thought, like, okay, sounds good. I'll go there, study for 4 years, come back, and find any job so that I will be able in my free time to do music. Of course, things did not turn out that way because I went there, I studied. I was not a good student for the first 2 years. I only passed like 5 courses in 2 years out of 40. And then the third year,
I like the optimism, not a good student. Like he passed 5 out of 40. He was not bad student. He was not a good,
Yeah,
he's a good seller of himself.
Obviously, almost he was not even a student. Almost 5 courses away.
Actually, that's accurate. I was not even a student. In some courses, I seem.
Did you know where the university was? Did you attend classes?
Of course.
Okay.
I did in the first semester a few, but then I stopped. I stopped because that's one of the weaknesses of the Greek university. Classes are not compulsory to attend, and that's why most students don't attend classes.
How would you spend your time if you didn't go to university?
With friends. We spend the time with friends playing music. I started playing in various music scenes of Rhodes. We explored the island, and it's not a big island. It resembles Cyprus very much, but there's a lot of things to do in, besides studying. We would go out, meet people, and so on, and then we would try our best at the exams to pass as many courses as we could. But at some point, I realized that I had at least I had the responsibility of getting my degree and not making my parents, pay more, because they were, hardworking people. It's not like we had money to spend here and there. So they sent me there with sacrifices. So that was one of the main drivers that sort of put me back into the game and made me want to fight and finish my degree on time. So starting from September of the 3rd year, like the beginning of the 3rd year, I started passing multiple courses at once. Every exam period, I would pass 10, 15 courses and started studying and attending classes and so on. And it was at that period that I started engaging, the field as well. Many questions that I had at the time about politics, about society, started coming out, and being channeled through my studies in various ways. For example, I realized that I knew very little about what this Cyprus conflict or Cyprus problem is. I knew very little about Cyprus history, about the history of the Mediterranean. I knew almost nothing about Turkey, this big, enemy, the occupying force in Cyprus, and I really wanted to answer some of these questions for myself. It began as a personal necessity, a need, and so I started studying, passing my courses, and in the final year, I chose to make a dissertation. It was quite a large dissertation, almost half a PhD. I studied Turkish foreign policy, Turkey-EU relations, and the Cyprus problem. And I managed to get answers for for me about the things that troubled me at the time. And then from there on, I basically didn't have many options, coming out of the degree. I didn't have many job opportunities, just like many of my colleagues. So I thought, on the one hand, there's nothing for me to do back in Cyprus. On the other hand, people still cannot call me an international relations specialist because my degree is in Mediterranean studies with a direction, a specialty in international relations. So I need to do something about this. At the same time, my friends would go and, they got accepted into masters in the UK and elsewhere and started and proceeded with their studies. So the natural thing for me to do would be to go and do a master's degree in the UK, which I did. And then, again, with the end of rather in the middle of the master's, I realized that I wouldn't again have any job opportunities coming back. I tried to figure out what the best thing for me would be to do in this field. I always knew that I liked, teaching, transferring knowledge, helping people reach their potential. So I thought perhaps the best thing to do is teach this thing, teach international relations, teach about the Middle East and Turkey and so on. And how can you do that? You need to get a PhD. So I applied to 10 universities. Only one accepted me, and then I did a PhD. That's the short story of my studies, at least.
You applied to 10 universities?
Almost 10 universities, if I'm not wrong.
Do you remember them?
I remember some of them. Probably Sussex, St. Andrews, maybe.
Was it the last on your list, like the same with Mediterranean studies? That would be.
No, actually, the University of Warwick, which is the one I went to, was one of the top. Much lower ranking universities rejected me, and this specific one accepted me because the supervisor, the professor that eventually got to supervise me, was very interested in studying with me to learn about Turkey. She was a specialist in the Arab world and the Middle East, but not so much on Turkey. So she wanted to spend some more time studying and helping a PhD student do research on Turkey.
It was very fascinating to hear how you went from a student that didn't even want to study that subject matter. Mm-hmm. Then you dived really deep into it, and you were succeeding, passing 10 or 15 modules in each exam period. Then you really liked the subject, studied a master's, and then you went even further and did a PhD. What was really what was the thing that made you dive into this subject matter? Or maybe not to be so specific, what was the drive to like put a goal or find a purpose through this journey for you?
I'm not sure. I think I pursued what seemed natural to me at the time, which was
described a very practical way of thinking, at least. Through the whole thing, you were describing, I couldn't find a job, so I did a master. After the master, I couldn't, and then...
I liked it. Of course, I liked the field. But, being older at that point, being 24 years old instead of 18, I thought that it'd be a better idea for me to further invest in what I already did and what I already knew, instead of abandoning it entirely and going back to Cyprus, trying to do something else. And the issue with me is that I can barely confine myself to one or two things. My life has always been, doing multiple things at a time. And this is this is also my process to be able to focus. If I'm doing one thing, I get bored and then I stop. While if I want to, succeed or proceed in something, then I leave it. I start doing something else. Then I start doing something else, and then I go back. Just to keep my mind busy, keep my creativity, if you want, going, and so on. So I think that at the time I thought that the best thing for me and for my future would be to invest in international relations as a field. People would tell me that you're good at this, because perhaps I should mention that at the university in Rhodes, I also in my final year I participated in multiple events and initiatives. I co-organized with other colleagues a conference, the first conference of its kind at the university, which still goes on. It's in its 13th year or something, and multiple other things. I started presenting at conferences, publishing articles in newspapers in 2010. So I felt that I had something to say, and that I should pursue that further. So by doing the masters, I also realized that I was already at a very good level when I got into the University of Birmingham, because most of what I studied I had already done in Greece, because it was very intensive bachelor's in Greece. So I was like, it seems that I'm quite ahead in this field in relation to what I'm seeing around me. So why not invest in this more? Why not, get myself to a position where I can offer, and teach and analyze and maybe be helpful, not only for people and students and so on, but maybe for my country at some point. Because what I'm studying here is about how states work, how leaderships think, how foreign policies are shaped, how Turkey functions, what the Cyprus problem is. So perhaps I could help at some point my country as well.
Did you apply for a scholarship at the Warwick University?
I did. There is a default process when you apply for a PhD where you also apply for the scholarship. I didn't get it. Very few people got it back then, and it was a period where they would cut scholarships and funds given to social sciences and humanities.
So you funded your PhD?
Yes, my parents funded it basically, and to a certain extent myself after the second year when I started working as a teaching assistant at the university. So I was fortunate enough to have my parents being able at that point in time support my studies, and for that I'm very grateful. But no, I didn't get any scholarships.
Right. How was the experience doing? I don't think I know many people having PhDs. Yeah. You're probably the only person I know. How is the experience of going through 3 more years than the usual study period for an average person in Cyprus?
And especially all your friends and colleagues, instead of investing and spending money to have further education, earning money through a job. So your peers are earning money, whereas you are spending more, you are investing in yourself. So I guess it's a difficult decision.
Yes. To be honest, I didn't think much of it. You will hear various experiences when it comes to PhD. People who do a PhD, especially in the hard sciences, physics and chemistry and stuff like that, or medicine even, they have really hard time. They have a really hard time. But I didn't feel like struggling too much. Because first of all, I'm an introvert. I don't mind sitting in a room all day, writing and reading. I didn't feel the need of going out. I didn't feel like I was not socializing enough or missing out of things and so on. I was very happy doing what I was doing. I struggled with questions that I had, and I struggled to find answers through books, through the research I did. So I interviewed a number of people in Turkey. So for me, this was very fulfilling. And I didn't feel like it was, a drag or a huge problem or a very tough period. And I think part of it is because I was willing to adapt, in the sense that you will often hear PhD students having issues with their supervisors, with what the supervisor wants. That is often different to what you want. I had no problem adjusting to what my supervisors wanted. I, for example, at some point I threw away a theoretical framework, a whole chapter of about 15,000 words, because they didn't want it. They wanted something different. So I said, okay, if you don't want it, it's better for me to write something else, instead of fighting with you and trying to figure out and find a middle ground that will take more time, more effort, and so on. So I was ready to adapt in order to reach my objective faster. And this is what I did. It only took me 3 years and 1 month. So usually people go up to 3.5 or 4 years to get their PhDs. My purpose is to just get it. This is, instead of thinking that I would be, writing the work of my life, as many PhDs think, I simply saw the PhD as a step in a process to something, in a process, in a journey to something else.
We're discussing how a teenager who wanted to study music ended up studying something he didn't even know what it was, and taking up to the ultimate level and doing a PhD and becoming a professor. But in both stories, there is a common thing. You are a person that have a purpose and puts goals, and you want to achieve them. Like, even when you wanted to, you knew that you wanted to study music, and you knew what you had to do to go through that route, but life didn't bring that to you through choices or through other factors. But the commonality is that you're a person that you want to put goals and achieve them. And what do you feel about that in general? And how important is for people to have a purpose in life?
To have a purpose is very important, and it's also very important not to dwell too much on stuff. Sometimes you just need to let things go in order to be able to move forward. Which is the mentality I'm describing is perhaps the opposite of the mentality of a perfectionist. Perfection has its place, but it's better to be effective instead of perfect. So I think this is my idea. I don't try to be perfect. I don't try to be the most exceptional in what I do. I don't try to be the best, whatever, analyst or professor or whatever. I try to be effective, not only for myself and my objectives, but I usually try to be effective in terms of the impact I have on others, on research, on my students, and I always try to see how I can improve myself in that regard. So I sometimes I am even willing to compromise with mistakes and weaknesses in my work, if I believe that the objective is more important than little mistakes and little weaknesses and so on. The downside of all this is that, and people tend to say that to me, is that you don't live in the moment. You always live somewhere in the future, trying to achieve something. And it's true. I tend to get too very much in my head sometimes, and not being able to live the moment, live with the people that with me or around me. Instead, I'm always in some strategizing mode, some forward-looking mode, some in some drive mode. I'm driven to something, but that means that I'm while going, usually in fast speeds, I miss things that which can be family, it can be friends, it can be events of life, it can be. And I'm trying to take a step back in the past couple of years to be less forward-looking, future-looking, and more conscious of what's happening in the moment.
And now we see the era of PhDs finishing, right? And you come back to Cyprus. So what naturally will happen? You have someone who is a specialist in international relations with a PhD. So I guess everyone is after you, political parties, the government, the universities, and they're saying, Zenonas, please come to give you a job, join us on research, and they value your opinion on Turkey, on the Cyprus problem, and in the international relationships.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is not the case.
I'm surprised.
Remember that guy who was running in the gym?
To be honest, I could have pursued a career via a political party. I'm not saying it was offered to me, but if you attach yourself to a political party from a young age, then it is likely that in the course of time, an opportunity will come to you. But I wanted to do the exact opposite. I wanted to do the exact opposite because I knew how people think. And if you want to have an impact that is considered to be objective and truthful, you need to distance yourself from labels that will create biases in your audience. So I didn't want people looking at me and thinking, this guy says this and that because he's of X or Y party, or because he bears X or Y ideology. Of course, I have my ideas, but I don't subscribe to the full ideological framework of any party. I don't have a political party identity, and this, of course, makes it difficult because not only can you not utilize XY party to promote yourself, but you also tend to criticize all political parties and all political powers, and without wanting to, you tend to make enemies in all political let's say fields. And this is what happened with me. But my objective was to be established, if possible, as an objective, a sober, and truthful analyst in what I did. I wanted people to be able to trust what I say, and I don't know if I managed that. What I know is that I'm still trying.
Okay, so do you feel you didn't want to become part of the political parties and the system in a way that doesn't affect your audience, but didn't that also make you a bit like an outsider for many? I remember many was trying to guess what is your motivation behind what you're saying, or if you by mistake or intentionally, I don't know, you had an analysis that it was different from a major political party or from a major or a well-known politician, then I remember at least that people were throwing stones sometimes when you were forming this kind of opinion on analysis in the public sphere.
Yeah, of course. Many people would ask me, so I haven't figured out what do you vote? Who do you vote? What's your political party? You are this, eh? You are that. saying, no, I'm not this, I'm not that. So why can't I figure you out? Why is that?
Why are you objective? Why you're truthful?
And the problem is that, and what I say to people is, your problem is that you're trying to label.
To label.
And this is a problem of critical thinking in Cyprus. We cannot think beyond labels.
But do you think it's only Cyprus? I think it's happening
it's
all
not
over
only
the
Cyprus,
world.
but it's in Cyprus. It's especially salient because we know everyone, and when you know everyone, you are able to put them under categories. He's left wing, he's right wing, he's a yes to Annan plan, he's a no to Annan plan, and I'm just bringing up a couple of very usual political categories in Cyprus. He's a rejectionist, or he's a traitor, or he's a whatever. So if people cannot put you under a category, they get very confused because they don't know what to feel about you. Because feelings tend to stem from identities and labels. If you're a left wing, then I hate you. If you're a right wing, I love you, and vice versa. So when you don't give them a clear label, instead of listening to you, sometimes they're trying to figure out what's your agenda and what's the political party you're supporting. So yeah, I don't. This is what I tell to people. I do get this question a lot, but I also just trying to think now. I was thinking.
I was saying how some people are throwing stones.
Yes. Of course, if you are in this situation, then people from both sides or all sides, they have a problem with you, or they applaud you in certain instances, and in other instances they curse you. And I felt that very vividly in many occasions. I had people, attack me on the internet and try to cyberbully me, and people sending threats to me, telling me, I've heard all sorts of, epithets put on my name. You're a left wing, you're a right wing, you're a nationalist, you're a traitor, you're a Turkophile, you're an anti-Turk, you're Jewish supporting the new world order, whatever conspiracy. Everything, whatever you can imagine, I've heard. And I don't mind. I don't mind, because what I'm trying to do is just put the truth out there as best I can. And if people have a problem with that, then so be it.
Do you get this across the board of all ages, or is it a generational thing? Younger people, because I told you how I met you the first time. I saw a young, enthusiastic professional making his way through the public sphere, and I could see that you studied hard to make it there. You were not there representing a political party. You were not there working for a think tank. You are there on your own, and you made it to the main, one of the main TV stations. Mm-hmm. For me, as a young professional at the time, it was a very inspirational moment, because I got the message that if you work hard, if you are passionate about something, you can achieve your goals. Do you feel that it's older people that try to label and younger people are more prone to accept and not put you under any label? And
no, you're right. Older people, I would include in the older, I would also include maybe late 30s, early 40s, from that age onwards. Because it's people who have more experience also in politics. They understand the political landscape a bit better. And they're more eager and more, ready. They're wired, in a sense, in that way, to label and to think in ideological terms and identities. Younger people, very few young people are politicized at all. have any idea about what's going on around us. And that's one of the reasons that, are less prone to call you names or label you, or and they're more open to hear to what you have to say. So from young people and people of my generation in their 30s, late 30s at this point, I get very positive comments, even from people who may disagree with me. They're more open, saying, I don't fully agree with you on this point, but I recognize that that you're making a very good argument, and that your motives behind the argument are okay. They're truthful. They are
able
pure.
to have a constructive dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When it comes to older people, they can't think beyond their they cannot think beyond their agendas, beyond the way they want things to be, and that's one of the struggles between the old and the new. The new is also always trying to be born, and the old is always trying to not let it be born, because its own established ideas, notions, power structures are challenged when the new thing comes along, and this is very unfortunate, because young people, the young generation, has things to say and has to be heard. At the same time, the young generation needs senior citizens or more experienced people. Society is one body, and it cannot function only with young people or only with older people. It needs both, and both need to listen to each other. That's the only way to move forward and progress. Otherwise, we're just preaching to the choir of our generations and not achieving anything meaningful.
Mentioning all this TV stuff and radio stuff that you did at a very young age, you started being in the public sphere. And I remember when I got a managerial role, not a significant managerial role, but I remember I was constantly put on the spot, and people were able to criticize me for whatever I did, whatever decision I made, whatever action I made, and rightly so. But it took some time to come in terms with it, to realize that, okay, it actually makes sense that people criticize you. It actually makes sense that people will say things. My mistakes will be visible from now on. People will be able to see it. And it was in a very microcosmos of my own company that I was dealing with a very few people. And I imagine you being that in the public sphere in the whole national Cyprus, at least. Any thoughts about that, or how you felt, especially at the beginning?
I was the youngest commentator out there, and maybe I still am, with the exception of a couple of people that sometimes comment lately. And it was hard because unless you have gray hair, people don't appreciate you in this society so much. So you need to be old, according to the stereotype, to be able to offer an opinion and people take you seriously. However, I should say that that many people appreciate the fact that a young man is out there, is articulate, and can say things that ring good to our ears, in the sense that he's saying something that we didn't know. He's offering a fresh perspective, because it's not so much about the analysis and the facts; it's about the perspective most of the time. So the people generally, the audience, the public opinion is open to listen to such to younger people. The problem lies not with the general public, but with the structures of power and those who control information and communication, like media. Media it is very difficult for media to offer an opportunity to a younger person. And I've had the experience of, for example, of a newspaper I know a discussion that took place behind my back with someone saying, no, don't use this guy. He's too young to talk about Turkey, for example, or the Cyprus problem. We need some more senior. And this didn't happen long ago. That was a couple of years ago. So on the other hand, you have people like, and I need to mention this, Panikos Hadjibanagis, who is an editor and director of news at CYBC, who was, brave enough, because it takes bravery to do something like that, to invite me as a person who I was 26 years old, on live TV. He took a personal risk putting me out there and giving me the stage to speak. And you need people like that to make to make their own contribution and bring about change in mainstream thought and stereotypes.
But how about after, where you heard good or bad things from people? I guess after some interviews, especially at the beginning of the television, people come and say, Zenonas, you said this so well. Or you were asking about feedback. Hey, how did I do it? And people, it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
without giving you lots of negative feedback.
No, I didn't get lots of negative feedback.
Okay.
Sometimes I did when I said there was certain things that were more challenging or provocative. But overall, the feedback was good. I mean,
we touched before on the difference, or let's say not the different way of thinking between the new and the old. And although I really have high hopes in the young people, and they're the ones who are gonna break the status quo and challenge the structures of society with the new ideas, I'm talking with young people of earlier generations. I have this feeling that their drive in life is not so about achieving a purpose that goes above their ego. They don't have this existential drive that maybe we can see in older generations. They have this very materialistic drive, and the people who are aspire and look after are, YouTubers, influencers on social media, people at their early 20s that made millions. And I don't know what to feel about it. It's a clash. It's an internal clash for me.
Yeah, you make a very good point. We live in a postmodern and very hedonistic culture. It's about satisfying our egos, our needs, our desires. We define happiness as having fun, basically, whatever that means: traveling, eating, playing, whatever it is that revolves around ourselves having a good time. Rather, happiness is about giving yourself to something greater than you, and being able to have a purpose that most of the time is not even about you, is about others. And this is what true love actually is. True love is sacrifice, is to be able to sacrifice yourself for something greater, for your family, for the society, for the greater good, and so on. And unfortunately, modern culture has put the individual so much at the center and abandoned society and humanity more broadly, that we've become disconnected from values and principles that used to drive society in previous years. Of course, the internet did not help because it provides, obviously it's a very good thing, and it provides access to a lot of information and a lot of capabilities. But at the same time, it creates a virtual world in which we constantly strive to depict a specific type of life, a lifestyle, a profile, an image, something that always has to do with who we are, how good we look, how much we have achieved. Very rarely do people, talk about their failures, for example. It's all about success. It's all about this big bubble of rosy pictures and and filtered videos and pictures and so on. So everyone's so beautiful, everyone's so pretty, everyone's so successful, everyone travels and blah blah blah. It's not that at all in real life. Life is full of adversity. It's full of failure. It's full of problems. And this is what makes you better. This is what makes you progress. This is what makes you move forward and become a better person. It's no coincidence that people who lived in a much more difficult period of history have, managed to go through life with much more resilience and much more perseverance. And that through difficult times in history, bigger and more meaningful leaders, emerged. Right now, we don't have leaders. We don't have people we can rely on. We don't have people who inspire. People who inspire are usually the people who have a lot of money, and they inspire about, I want that. I want that money. So what did you do? I want to do the same to get there. But it's not people who inspire about who they are, their integrity, their character, and so on. For me specifically, I think that through all my life, my faith in God has been the central, at the center. I've always looked at my purpose in relation to how I should stand before God and how I should work on behalf of God on earth. So that's why I've always strived for truth, for goodness, and for serving other people in any way that I can. I am no saint, obviously. I'm just saying that the drive behind my higher purpose here is this.
Just to move a bit on we move from studies, PhD, coming back to Cyprus, your involvement in the public sphere in Cyprus, but we didn't talk about your professional life.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us like a map of what happened from the day you arrived back to Cyprus and where you are right now?
Yeah. So I came back to Cyprus in 2014, a little before I finished my PhD, because I was engaged at the time. So I was looking for a job. For almost a year, I was without a job. I was unemployed. I did some commentary here and there and got a few money. But I was living with my parents and couldn't afford, to be independent. At some point, in May 2015, I got a job at a research program and worked there for around 10 months. I couldn't stay there. I wasn't the right fit for the job because I wanted some more structure, and the people in the project, they needed someone who was more, adjustable and more open to following different paths and different schedules as the work moved on. So I left that job and started working in private universities, making a few €100 a month, teaching long hours, 6 to 12 hours a week. That's only for teaching. And imagine that every 2 hours of teaching, you need around 6 hours of preparation. That went on for a while until 2017. September 2017, I was hired as a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Cyprus, where I did research for 1 year. I had 1 more year left, but it was cut short because I was offered the job by the Peace Research Institute of Oslo, the Cyprus branch. It's a Norwegian research institute, very well known globally about its research on peace and conflict. I worked there for until last September of 2022, when my dream basically came true, and I was hired in the Department of Turkish and Middle Eastern Studies at the University of Cyprus, where I was an outsider in the process. I actually did the application just for fun. I never thought they would pick me. And, a few months later, here we are.
Nice. When you, I guess, the ideal scenario when you landed back to Cyprus from Warwick was to have this job that you have right now, right?
Yes, of course.
Like, how many years later you got it?
Well, almost 8.
Oh.
No, more than 8.
Wow. And having that ideal scenario that you recently arrived to, what were your thoughts through all this changing of jobs and freelancer around and
I didn't think much. I worked most of the time from morning to midnight. And I think that's one of the things that put me in front of the race, in a sense, because I would work, for example, as a consultant to this research project, and then I would go home and write papers that would later be published in scientific journals to build my profile, hoping that one day a job opportunity will arise and that my CV will be good enough to get the job. There was another opportunity for me to get into the University of Cyprus. I was shortlisted and I did go for an interview. I was the youngest guy there. I mean, everyone was 10 years or more older than me. I didn't get the job. Someone else more senior got the job. But I still fought it and thought that I had heard that, at some point maybe more job positions will open at the University of Cyprus, or maybe one of the private universities. So I always thought that at some point down the line, one such opportunity will arise, and that if I keep at it, I will be at a place where I will be able to compete on good terms for any such position. The position in the political science department didn't emerge after all, but the position in the Turkish Department of Turkish and Middle Eastern Studies came about. I applied, as I said, for fun, because I'm not a Turkologist per se. I'm a political scientist with an expertise on Turkey. So I applied, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great story, and I hope the young students that are gonna listen to our podcast, they focus on the Zenonas during his master's and PhD studies, that he was focused, and when he was working hard to build his profile to land this dream job, rather the young Zenonas who didn't even attend the university classes. I don't know if your university students know about this. Like, I'm sure you demand from them to come to your classes. But I think one of the nice messages here is if you have a passion and if you work hard, if you have goals, and if you have faith, you can achieve many things in your life.
I believe so, and you need also support. I mean, I don't like the idea of an American dream. I don't believe in such a thing. I think that people who say, whoever you are, you can be anything you want. I think that's very stretched. But I think that people with a little help and a little support can go a long way if they do take advantage in a good way. That supports, and they're faithful to those who support them, faithful to themselves, faithful to the objectives. And I do think that people need to go through a process to find, their calling or where they should be. Sometimes it's a long process. Sometimes it's a short process. People should not be disappointed if they're 25 years old and they're still, they still don't know what to do exactly. Unfortunately, our schools are not good enough in providing directions. The best advice I have for someone who is looking for that is, do what you love. If you do what you love, you will do it in the best way possible, and people will see you. People will see what you do if you do what you love and you do it with a passion.
It's a bit opposite with what you did, because you didn't do music.
Yeah, I didn't do music. I couldn't do music. If I could, I would.
Okay.
But
and you
people
especially love it at first, I would guess. The first year with the 5 courses.
Yes, of course. But people, there's life can give you multiple options and multiple opportunities. People are not necessarily destined to do one specific thing. People can do more than one thing, and it may be not A, it could be B, but you need to love it.
Yeah.
Maybe you love it less than A, but you still need to love it.
Yeah, it's probably 20 things that you love.
If you hate it and you just do it because it will get you a lot of money, you will end up a depressed, rich person.
Yeah, that's for sure.
If that's okay with you, then
yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for coming here and sharing the story.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zenonas.